Medieval prostitutes. Just hearing that makes you feel shocked, right? Hey guys, good evening. Tonight, I'm gonna pull back the velvet curtain on a story from history so raw, so relentless, that it won't just shock you, it might make the sweat break out on your skin. We're stepping into the world of survival, sin, and secrecy. The harsh, unvarnished life of a medieval prostitute, a woman whose days were a battle for every coin, every morsel of respect, and every sliver of safety. If my little corner of history manages to carve a place in your mind tonight, I'd be honored if you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. Seriously, seeing your locations is one of my favorite parts of this journey. Now, dim the lights a little. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft, constant hum in the background, and settle in. Take a deep breath, because we're about to step into a world where courage is currency, shame is standard, and every day is a fight just to stay alive. This is where the life of a medieval prostitute unfolds in all its gritty, unsparing reality. Life without sleep, always pleasing the customer. They never sleep, not really. Not in the way that anyone else might imagine rest. The small hours of the night blur into the early whispers of dawn, and still there is no pause. The life of a medieval prostitute is measured not in hours but in survival, in moments stolen from exhaustion, in the fragile currency of favor. Every second that passes, every squeak of floorboard, every faint sound in the alley beneath their window is a signal to wake, to prepare, to perform. A cough, a stumble, the clatter of a boot against the cobblestones, and the body that would long for dreams leaps up instead, heart hammering, muscles tensing, knowing already that the day will not wait for slumber. The rooms they inhabit are nothing like the cozy chambers one might imagine in a noblewoman's home. Small as a kindness, cramped bordering on cruel, filled with the sense of damp straw, old sweat, and something else, the lingering aroma of urine and vinegar, mixed with the faintly sweet decay of the city's refuse. The walls, timbered and bowed, seem to lean inward, as if the building itself is conspiring to remind its occupants of their insignificance. One floorboard groans beneath a shifting weight, and they step carefully, already calculating how to navigate the hazards that will not pause for comfort. And yet, life insists they rise, because every heartbeat delayed is money lost, opportunity squandered. Their bodies, once pliant and untested, have learned the cruel calculus of survival. Pleasure must be given, always, regardless of their own fatigue, their own pain, their own bodily revolt. Sleep is a distant luxury. It exists only in dreams, stolen moments during stolen hours, often interrupted by the urgent knock of someone who has paid to believe they matter more than the night itself. The work begins in the unkind light of morning, or sometimes in the darkness that never fully relinquishes the alleyways. Hygiene is optional, and cleanliness is a fleeting, unattainable myth. A basin of cold water, sometimes fetched from a communal tap or cistern, offers a momentary shock, a reminder that life pulses in these aching muscles. Soap is often borrowed, stolen, or simply absent. Fingers scrub underarms and the cross rough linen in a rhythm learned from necessity, accompanied by a whispered prayer to a saint whose name is remembered more out of superstition than devotion. The hair is knotted, greasy, a halo of defeat, yet carefully tied back with ribbons once white, now dulled by soot, sweat, and neglect. The skin bears the evidence of endless work, the bites of fleas that have grown bold with regular meals of human flesh and blood, and the faint stains of meals missed or shared hurriedly. Red is the mandated color, the uniform of availability and taxation. It hangs unevenly, stretched and worn, announcing to all who pass in the streets and alleyways, "I am here, and I am for sale." The gown may smell faintly of boiled cabbage, vinegar, and the lingering odor of previous encounters. Shoes, mismatched and cracked, slap against the uneven floor as the day begins in earnest. There is no glamour here. The only beauty is in survival, in the careful, relentless art of appearing alive, attentive, desirable, without surrendering to despair. The madam prowls the hallways, ledger in hand, chastising those behind on rent, those who borrowed linens and never returned them, those who failed to anticipate a client's precise whims. Their voices ring like church bells of doom, a reminder that in this world, authority is absolute, and resistance is measured in how quickly the debt is paid or favor is regained. Even as the madam departs, leaving behind a trail of grievances and half-finished curses, the young woman steels herself for the first customer, heart quickening, muscles coiled, mind rehearsing the smile, the words, the perfect degree of attentiveness. Clients vary, but the performance is always the same. The baker from 2 streets over, always married, always fumbling in his adoration, bringing a loaf of bread as though carbohydrates might purchase intimacy. The city guard, impatient, demanding flattery and laughter, unaware that the woman beneath his gaze has already survived countless mornings like this. Each encounter requires calculation. How to please without yielding entirely. How to endure without losing dignity. How to extract payment without inviting violence. Each face, each hand, each murmur of approval or discontent is memorized, cataloged, and filed away for the next day's reference. And still, there is no pause. The body complains in small ways at first, a stiff back, a sprained ankle, a dull thrum behind the eyes, but these are nuisances, not obstacles. Pain is factored into the ledger of survival, just like coin or bread or the occasional favor. There is no question of quitting, no luxury of hesitation. Life in the alleyways and chambers has taught lessons too brutal to ignore. If you falter, you fall. If you hesitate, you are replaced. If you sleep, you are forgotten. Even menstruation does not grant reprieve. The work continues, the calculations of desire and payment, the rehearsals of body and expression, all relentless. There is no shame in the body's natural cycles here, only the cold arithmetic of survival. And yet, in this relentless cycle, there is a strange artistry, a learned grace, a rhythm of endurance that transforms mere survival into something like mastery. The young woman knows that each smile, each sigh, each carefully timed gesture is both armor and currency. The early morning rituals are harsh, the body unready, the soul fatigued before the day has even begun. Meals are scarce or non-existent. The occasional bread or ale brought by a client or stolen in hurried barter is both sustenance and reminder of precarious independence. The air smells of city refuse, of boiled cabbage, of sweat and vinegar, and the faint lingering perfume of the night before. The streets are noisy with merchants, beggars, and children. The echoes of church bells punctuate every transaction and interaction, a constant reminder of morality, judgment, and survival. Social bonds with fellow women are tentative. Rivalry and camaraderie entwine, forming a fragile web of shared secrets, small favors, and whispered warnings. One might borrow a soap, another might cover a debt. Allies are precious, as are opportunities to gain favor, to secure a client, to survive the long, unrelenting day. Conversations are hushed, laughter rare, smiles carefully measured. Every interaction is a negotiation, not just with men, but with fate itself. And through it all, the young woman reflects, even if only in fleeting thoughts between gestures, how she arrived here, what choices or misfortunes shaped her, how money and necessity have defined a life she did not fully choose. Childhood dreams, family expectations, religious instruction, and social customs collide with harsh reality. The medieval city is indifferent, the streets unforgiving, the chambers unrelenting. Yet, through pain, through fatigue, through constant performance, she survives. And in survival, there is a strange, uncelebrated triumph. By mid-morning, the room itself seems to settle into a rhythm. The smell of sweat and vinegar and faint perfume blends into an almost familiar melody. Floorboards, once threatening with their groans, become guides, teaching her steps to safety and precision. Each sound in the alley, each rattle or shout is cataloged, interpreted, responded to, rehearsed. Life becomes a dance of vigilance and performance, a relentless choreography that leaves little room for rest but ensures continuity, survival, and occasional, fleeting satisfaction. Even in moments of exhaustion, there is awareness of her value, of her skill, of her ability to navigate a world that seeks to exploit, judge, and consume her. And though sleep may never come, the day moves forward, each client, each coin, each interaction adding to a ledger of experience that is equal parts humiliation, artistry, and survival. By the end of the first morning, the body is weary, the mind alert, the soul tempered, and still there is the knowledge that night will fall again, and with it, new faces, new desires, new calculations. Life without sleep is not merely endurance, it is mastery of the self in an unforgiving world, an art form born of necessity, pain, and relentless determination.
Cramped living conditions. The rooms they inhabit are absurdly small, almost laughably so, if it weren't for the constant ache in their backs and the sting in their eyes from the dim, leaky light filtering through patched-up holes in the walls. Space is measured not in feet or meters, but in the width of a single straw mattress, in the stretch of a crooked floorboard, in the careful choreography required to avoid tripping over what little they own. One step forward and a jar might topple, or a basin spill, or worse, a client, unexpectedly early, might knock, and the woman must respond, smile intact, composure maintained, despite the chaos of her immediate environment. The timber walls lean inward in protest, bowing as if tired of holding up the fragile roof, and with every storm, every heavy drop of rain, they groan and shiver, sometimes letting in enough water to dampen the thin layer of straw that passes for a mattress. The ceiling is a patchwork of weak beams and rough planks, scarred by years of makeshift repairs and the constant threat of falling debris. In winter, the cold leaks through the gaps, chilling every bone and tendon, leaving the occupants shivering under thin blankets that never fully dry. In summer, the sun beats down through patched holes, turning the tiny space into an oven, hot and stifling, where sweat pools in corners and insects flourish. The smell is something between rot, mold, and the lingering odor of human sweat and neglect. Pigeons sometimes find their way inside through broken sections of the wall or the small nailed-up windows, leaving feathers and droppings that mix with the ever-present dust. Rats are regular visitors, bold and brazen, scuttling across the floorboards in the dead of night, gnawing on forgotten crumbs, sometimes on clothing, sometimes, horrifyingly, brushing too close to the body of the sleeping woman. Fleas and lice have long since declared permanent residence. There is no privacy, no sacred corner, no true refuge. Everything is shared, the walls, the floor, the air, the vermin. The bedding is a joke, a thin sack of straw, lumpy and uneven, smelling faintly of vinegar and old sweat. Each night it absorbs every ounce of exhaustion, every bead of bodily fluid, every small humiliation endured during the day. Tiny insects take their nightly feast from the human flesh pressed against the straw, their bites adding to the general discomfort. The straw pokes through the old sack in sharp reminders that comfort is not a feature of this life. And yet, the mattress, for all its flaws, is a familiar presence, a constant in a world otherwise full of unpredictability. Storage is non-existent. A wooden chest, cracked and warped by moisture, serves as both wardrobe and secret vault. Clothes, such as they are folded in layers, mixed with linens, personal tokens, or any small trinket that might hold meaning or value. Each item is precious: a stolen ribbon, a borrowed piece of soap, a carefully hidden coin. The room's small size demands constant negotiation with gravity and space. Lean too far, knock something over. Reach too high, hit the ceiling. Move too quickly, awaken the vermin. Every action is calculated, deliberate, or risked at one's own peril. The light in these rooms is minimal. Candles, if afforded, flicker weakly, casting long shadows that twist across the walls. Sometimes the shadows play tricks, creating the illusion of movement, and sometimes they are movement, rats or birds or the occasional neighbor peering in. In the dimness, every object is exaggerated, every flaw pronounced. Every crack, every stain, every patch of damp is a narrative in itself, telling the story of previous tenants, previous nights of struggle, previous encounters that left marks invisible only to the inattentive eye. Sound is relentless. The city outside is alive, the clatter of carts over cobblestones, the shouting of merchants, the barking of dogs, the grinding of millstones. Inside, the small room amplifies the groans of the floor, the creak of the walls, the drip of water from the roof. When a client arrives, or even when a neighbor shouts, it reverberates with an urgency that leaves no one unprepared. Sleep is not restful here. Rest is an interlude between obligations, never a luxury. Despite all of this, life goes on. Women navigate these spaces with a practiced grace that turns apparent chaos into functional living. A broom sweep, a carefully placed scrap of cloth, a whispered word to a fellow tenant. These small actions are rituals of survival, marking territory, asserting presence, creating order in disorder. Each day begins with cleaning, rearranging, securing their possessions, often while enduring the judgmental eye of the madame or the unrelenting gaze of a nearby client. The architecture itself seems designed to humiliate. Narrow stairs twist without warning, ceilings hang low, forcing stooped posture, beams jutting to corners, creating hazards for the unobservant or fatigued. Windows, if they exist at all, are mere slits, patched with cloth or thin wood, admitting neither much light nor warmth. Rain splashes in, forcing quick improvisation. Water drained into broken basins, cloths wrung out, straw mattresses rearranged to avoid soaking. Every item in the room carries weight, literal and metaphorical. A jar of water might be the difference between hygiene and infection. A stolen loaf of bread could feed hunger and client favor. Even clothing, torn or frayed, holds social value. A stolen ribbon, a patched gown, a lace borrowed from a previous customer, each piece a statement of identity, desire, or survival. Their personal effects are not possessions in the modern sense. They are tools, currency, shields, and weapons all at once. The small rooms breed tension. Arguments between tenants erupt over space, stolen items, borrowed soap, or perceived slights. Alliances are fragile, and humor is dark, born from necessity rather than pleasure. A laugh shared is a temporary reprieve, a fleeting bond forged in the furnace of adversity. Even solitude, if attainable, is punctuated by noises that remind them they are never truly alone. Neighbors, vermin, city guards, the madame, clients, the streets themselves. Privacy, in the traditional sense, does not exist. Clothes are hung to dry where space allows. Meals are consumed in near silence, conversations are whispered, secrets are buried under layers of straw and dust. The walls are thin, the ceilings thin, the floorboards thin, and yet these women grow resilient, learning to move, to speak, to laugh, to cry, without drawing attention, without compromising their survival. Still, even in this small, oppressive space, life is lived. Small joys find their way in: a clean cloth, a quiet moment to touch a ribbon, a coin tucked safely away, a scrap of bread eaten in privacy. These acts are precious, ephemeral, but they matter. They mark the difference between mere existence and something resembling dignity. By the end of each day, after clients, disputes, and the relentless calculation of survival, these rooms stand as both prison and refuge. They are cramped, smelly, and perilous, yet they are familiar, predictable, and necessary. Every plank, every crack, every patch of mold is memorized, mapped, and integrated into the dance of survival. Here, in this tiny, suffocating, unforgiving space, a medieval prostitute lives, breathes, endures, and sometimes even thrives.
Hygiene struggles. In the cramped and suffocating rooms of the medieval city, cleanliness is a myth, an aspiration that hovers on the horizon but never quite arrives. For a woman whose life revolves around the relentless demands of survival and the careful management of desire, hygiene is both a necessity and an impossibility, a constant battle against the city, the body, and circumstance itself. A handful of water, usually lukewarm at best and often ice-cold from a night in the cistern, is all that stands between her and a day that threatens to begin with grime, sweat, and the odors of yesterday. Soap is a rare luxury. The few pieces that exist are borrowed, stolen, or rationed carefully across days, sometimes shared among colleagues, sometimes hidden under floorboards for safekeeping. Often it is simply absent, leaving rough linen, coarse cloth, or the bare hand as the only tools with which to scrub the skin. Every movement, every sweep of fingers against arms, legs, and neck is deliberate, a ritual of survival as much as cleanliness. And yet even with the utmost effort, the scent of the city, of sweat, of human labor, clings to her like a shadow she cannot shake. The water, even when available, is rarely pristine. It carries the chill of the morning, the dust and debris of the cistern, perhaps even traces of disease. Each splash on the face, each hurried rubbing of armpits or neck is an encounter with discomfort, a reminder that the body, like the room, is both battlefield and instrument. Chills race along the spine, goosebumps rise on skin already marked by toil, and yet there is no pause. The day demands attention, readiness, and the illusion of freshness, because a client will not forgive neglect, nor will a madam. Hair is another matter entirely. Untamed, matted, weighted with the oils of yesterday and the tangles of hurried sleep, it falls across shoulders in defiance of style or regulation. Combing it is a ritual fraught with challenges. Fingers rip through tangles, breaking strands, opening scabs of forgotten bites, brushing against the uninvited pests that have made residence in locks thick and unkempt. Occasionally a stolen comb, a borrowed pin, a ribbon once white and now dulled by soot is employed in a desperate attempt to tame it, to signal order amidst chaos. But often this is merely cosmetic. The true measure of survival lies not in appearance, but in endurance, in the ability to rise and perform despite filth and fatigue. The skin tells its own story. Dried sweat, small bruises, insect bites, rashes from damp straw mattresses. Every mark is a chapter in the ongoing chronicle of life in these narrow rooms. Hands are calloused, nails broken,
cracked or dirt-stained. Each scratch, each abrasion, each unnoticed cut is testimony to the constant negotiation between work and body, between obligation and flesh. And through it all, a stubborn dignity persists, an effort to present oneself as viable, desirable, and worthy, even when the body protests loudly with odor, fatigue, or discomfort. Bathing, when it occurs, is itself a dangerous proposition. Communal tubs or basins in the alleyways or shared water sources expose the body not only to chill and filth, but to the eyes and judgments of others. Privacy is compromised, modesty a luxury long since surrendered to necessity. A single misstep, a splash of cold water, a stumble over uneven stones, the sudden arrival of another woman can ruin the delicate balance between sanitation and exposure. In these moments, patience, grace, and speed are equally necessary. Survival demands efficiency in cleaning as much as in the performance of the day's labor. Odor is inevitable. The faint, persistent scent of body and sweat, mingled with the odors of the city, of refuse and boiling cabbage, becomes a constant companion. It announces presence before the eyes have taken notice, communicates the reality of human necessity in a world that prefers illusion. It is a signature, unavoidable and enduring, that marks each woman as both participant and victim of her environment. Yet despite the inevitability of scent, she moves forward, presenting herself with the practiced skill of a performer, a negotiator, a survivor. The rituals of hygiene are more than physical. They are psychological. Each splash of water, each rubbed cloth, each hurried attempt to appear presentable is an act of preparation, of mental fortification against the day's relentless demands. These women have learned to associate the cold shock of water on skin with alertness, with readiness, with the shifting gears necessary to transform exhaustion into attention, fatigue into charm. They train themselves to smile despite weariness, to feign interest despite discomfort, to endure touch without flinching, all while knowing that the faintest trace of neglect may cost them favor, coin, or safety. Hairpins, scraps of stolen cloth, ribbons dulled by use, small vessels of oil, and other implements are deployed strategically. Combs are rare, so fingers become tools. Ribbons become instruments of control over chaos. Oil or water becomes an attempt at taming the unmanageable. And yet, in this elaborate ballet of preparation, success is partial. Hair rebels, skin betrays sweat, odor persists. It is not perfection that sustains them, but the illusion of care, the practiced performance of attention, the careful presentation of viability in a world that prizes surface even when reality is otherwise. The basins themselves are characters in this daily drama. Chipped, cracked, sometimes barely able to hold water without spilling, they are filled cautiously, used judiciously, and scrubbed with rough cloths that leave hands raw and fingertips bleeding. Water is precious, soap even more so, and the rhythms of bathing are governed as much by scarcity as by the body's need. A missed day or an insufficient cleansing does not mean indulgence, it means risk, exposure, and diminished value in the marketplace of desire. Beyond the physical, the rituals of hygiene are a performance for clients. The water, the touch, the careful manipulation of hair and skin is a display, a signal that despite fatigue, neglect, or circumstance, the woman remains viable, attractive, and available. There is a theater in the process, a choreography learned from necessity, repeated until reflex, until the performance itself becomes indistinguishable from preparation. The audience may never know the discomfort, the effort, the chill of the water, the prickle of fleas, the ache of muscles long overworked. They see only the result, readiness, poise, and the fleeting illusion of cleanliness. And yet, even in these harsh, cramped rooms, amidst the odor, the dirt, and the inevitable imperfections, there is resilience. There is a learned grace, a rhythm that turns filth into familiarity, discomfort into ritual, scarcity into strategy. The women navigate every object, every corner, every imperfection with a practiced eye and a deft hand. They move in patterns dictated by necessity, choreographed by years of experience, by a need to survive, and by the unforgiving standards of their clientele. By midday, the small room has absorbed the labor, the effort, the rituals of the early hours. The floor is damp from hurried washing, straw mattresses flattened by repeated movement, hair pulled back in renewed attempts at order. The scent of vinegar and sweat remains, mingling with the faint aroma of soap, stolen or borrowed, and the faint perfume or powder left from previous clients. And still the body stands ready, alert, and primed for the next demand, the next interaction, the next calculated performance. The struggle with hygiene is never-ending. Cold water, rough cloth, matted hair, cracked nails, insect bites, rashes from damp straw mattresses, all persist. Yet these women persist as well, moving, smiling, negotiating, performing, surviving. Cleanliness is optional, appearance is negotiated, odor is inevitable. And in that negotiation, in that careful balance, lies both the tragedy and the artistry of a life lived on the edge of endurance. Every wash, every comb through tangled hair, every dab of oil or water is an act of defiance against circumstance. Each gesture is a claim of agency, a statement that despite filth, fatigue, and social condemnation, she remains present, capable, and alive. The rooms may be cramped, the water insufficient, the soap absent, but the body, trained and disciplined, becomes both shield and instrument, allowing survival, performance, and the faint, flickering possibility.
Clothing and appearance. In the dim light of a cramped chamber, the wardrobe is both armor and announcement. Clothing is dictated not by fashion, but by ordinance, by law, and by the brutal arithmetic of social visibility. The city, ever meticulous about the boundaries of sin and commerce, requires a uniform. A faded red gown, worn and threadbare, a color chosen not for beauty, but for its unambiguous declaration. Red, the hue of availability, the signal of taxable service, the badge of a life lived on display. To walk these streets in anything but red is to risk punishment, shame, or both, a warning stamped in pigment on fabric and flesh alike. The gown itself tells a story. The fabric is thin, stretched over shoulders and chest, faded from repeated washes and months of exposure to sun and smoke. Stains persistent and enigmatic mar the cloth, perhaps wine from a previous evening, perhaps something spilled during the hurried breakfast consumed atop the straw mattress, or perhaps evidence of a more intimate transaction now faded but not forgotten. The hem frays, threads hanging in delicate rebellion, catching occasionally on protruding nails or floorboards, each snag a reminder that duty is secondary to survival. Shoes, if they exist, are mismatched, cracked, and far too small, molded by constant use, but still uncomfortable. They slap against uneven floorboards, creating a rhythm that becomes part of the day's choreography, a percussion marking the relentless march of hours. Every step is measured, careful, aware of the fragility of the body, the slipperiness of the floor, the danger of being seen unprepared. A misstep might bring a bruise, a spill, a stain on the precious red fabric, each one a note in the ledger of imperfections that follow every woman from one day to the next.
Hair is another battlefield. Once ribbons were white, now they are dulled by soot, sweat, and the dust of the street. The braid or knot that holds back the mass of hair is not merely decorative, but functional, a shield against fleas, the constant tug of movement, and the gaze of those who measure worth in appearance. Hair combs are rare, stolen or borrowed, and often the fingers themselves are the instruments of grooming, untangling, braiding, and controlling the unruly strands with callous dexterity. Oil, water, and whatever fragments of scented powders can be procured are sparingly applied, not for beauty, but for the illusion of care, a performance designed to meet expectation while masking exhaustion and filth. Maquillage, rouge, or the delicate powders employed by wealthier women are luxuries rarely indulged. A dab of ash here, a smear of whatever red pigment survives there, is sometimes applied, but often the day demands more subtle art. A tired face, slightly pallid, with lips untouched by color, is in fact advantageous. It signals availability while hinting at mystery, a strategy honed by necessity and by observation. Clients rarely notice the faint imperfections. Most are too eager, too intoxicated by anticipation, or too accustomed to mediocrity to critique anything beyond the spectacle they've paid to witness. In these chambers, clothing is less about personal choice than about survival and signaling. The red gown is a uniform of acceptance, of exposure, of economic necessity. It screams, whispers, and commands simultaneously. I am here. I am available. I am mine to be purchased. Beneath it, undergarments are threadbare or missing entirely, a concession to the environment and the economy. Each stitch, each patch, each repair tells a story of scarcity, improvisation, and resourcefulness. The fabric may smell faintly of vinegar, sweat, or cheap perfume applied sparingly to mask odors. This combination of smell and texture becomes as much a part of the display as the color itself. Accessories are minimal, practical, and often stolen or borrowed. A ribbon may double as a hair tie, a band for the wrist, or a marker of rank among peers. Jewelry, when it exists, is frequently a token of gratitude from a client. Small coins embedded into rings, or scraps of metal converted into adornment. Each piece is both display and defense, a signal of skill, resourcefulness, or temporary wealth. They are careful, deliberate, and intimately aware of how each item will be perceived, how it will perform under scrutiny, and how it will survive the day's relentless demands. The act of dressing itself is a performance. One reaches for the gown, positions it carefully over shoulders, smooths the fabric over bony hips, tugs the hem to avoid snagging. Shoes are laced, mismatched though they may be, and each step is rehearsed to avoid misplacement, to maintain grace, and to navigate both the chamber and the street with efficiency. Hair is adjusted, tied, pinned. A ribbon slides into place. A strand of hair is twisted for control. A bit of ash is applied to the cheeks. The mirror, a small scratched makeshift piece of metal nailed to the wall, offers a reflection that is less about vanity than about readiness. It is the last check before the performance begins, the final negotiation between appearance and survival. Beyond the practical, clothing is a weapon, a shield, and a tool. The red gown attracts, signals, and delineates boundaries. It is the mark of status within the marginal economy they inhabit. A woman in red is both desired and regulated. The gown hides as much as it reveals,
Beneath it, the body is trained, disciplined, and prepared for rapid transformation, from exhaustion to allure, from retreat to engagement. Shoes, hair, and sparse accessories all contribute to this visual lexicon, translating intent, availability, and compliance into language clients understand without words. Each item carries the weight of history. The red fabric may have been cut from a gown worn by another, stitched and restitched over months of use. The shoes may have been rescued from a heap of discarded goods, patched with scraps of cloth or leather, shaped to fit feet that are already worn and sore. Hair ribbons may have once been bright and white, now dulled by fire, dust, sweat, and tears. Each imperfection, each mark, each fray is a story, a testament to resourcefulness, ingenuity, and endurance. Despite these constraints, there is artistry here, subtle and hard-won. The way fabric drapes, the careful tug of a hem, the placement of a ribbon, the slight adjustment of posture or stance are all calculated to convey readiness, charm, and availability, while masking fatigue, discomfort, or dirt. It is a theater in miniature, a silent performance rehearsed repeatedly, honed by experience, and executed with precision. The world outside judges harshly, but within the chamber, within these walls, the performance is both survival and mastery, necessity and expression. By the time the morning rituals of clothing and appearance conclude, the woman is ready for the day. The gown hangs correctly. The shoes slap in rhythm. Hair is restrained but alive with motion, and the faint illusion of care has been crafted to withstand scrutiny. The chamber itself seems to recognize the effort. Straw flattened beneath feet, the small mirror reflecting resilience, and the worn floorboards holding steady against the weight of preparation. And while true cleanliness, true beauty, and true comfort may never exist here, the combination of red fabric, careful posture, and practiced gestures is more than sufficient. It is survival made visible, artistry born of necessity, and a signal that, despite everything, the woman is ready, alert, and capable of enduring whatever the day and the clients may demand.
Madame and authority. The Madame rules with a voice sharp enough to cut through the morning fog, the smell of boiled cabbage, and the faint stench of sweat that clings to every corner of the cramped chamber. She is both feared and respected, a figure whose presence dominates the narrow hallways where each creaking floorboard seems to amplify her authority. Ledger in hand, she patrols like a general inspecting her troops, eyes scanning for the slightest lapse, the smallest oversight, the faintest hint of rebellion or negligence. Every woman in her care or her prison, depending on perspective, knows that her approval is fleeting, her anger unrelenting, and her punishments precise and merciless. Her voice is the first sound of the morning, long before the city's bells or the muffled clamor of distant merchants. It begins as a low rumble of disapproval, rising quickly to a shriek that bounces off walls and beams, scattering stray cats and alarming rats alike. "Unpaid fees," she bellows. "Who used the good soap? Where is the clean linen? I want ledgers updated by sunrise." Each word is a hammer, each syllable a reminder that there is no margin for error in this small, suffocating world. The ledger itself is a symbol of her dominion. Pages are worn and dog-eared, filled with columns of coins owed and paid, hours worked, items borrowed, and the occasional remark on a woman's behavior. The ink, smudged in places, carries both record and threat. a miscalculation, an overlooked debt, or even a forgotten courtesy is noticed, logged, and punished. For the Madame, the ledger is both map and weapon, a tool through which she asserts control over the lives contained within the narrow walls of her domain. Punishments are swift, calculated, and public. A missed payment might mean extra labor. A borrowed item might trigger hours of scolding in front of peers. A broken rule could lead to deprivation of food or other small comforts. She enforces hierarchy not merely with authority, but with spectacle. The women learn quickly. Compliance is survival, attention to detail is currency, and defiance carries a cost that is rarely worth the risk. Even subtle resistance, a lingering glance, a whispered joke, a fraction of hesitation is observed and recorded. But the Madame's rule is not purely cruel. In her strictness lies structure, and in structure lies survival. Without her, the chaos of the streets, the unpredictability of clients, and the relentless pressures of the chamber would overwhelm even the strongest of women. She provides order, if only through fear, and this order is as necessary as the straw mattresses, the basins of water, and the patched red gowns. Her authority enforces boundaries, codifies expectation, and ensures that each transaction, each day, each moment of survival is measured and accounted for. The Madame also acts as negotiator, intermediary, and occasionally protector. She monitors the flow of clients, decides on allocations, and sometimes intervenes when disputes threaten to escalate. Her presence is both stabilizing and intimidating, reminding the women that while they serve the city, they are also under her dominion. Her eyes miss little. The way a client lingers too long, the way a woman hesitates, the tiny exchanges of stolen coins or whispered conspiracies. Each observation feeds back into the ledger, each judgment a note in the ongoing symphony of control she orchestrates. Authority in the chambers is absolute, but it is enforced with nuance. The Madame knows her women, their weaknesses and strengths, their moods and patterns. She deploys her anger like seasoning, sometimes generous, sometimes sparing, to ensure optimal performance. A scolding at dawn is counterbalanced by a whispered favor at dusk. A harsh reprimand may precede a small reward. The dynamics are intricate, learned over years, and understood instinctively by all involved. Every interaction is negotiation, every word a transaction, every gesture a lesson in power and survival. Clients too recognize her authority. They know that she manages the rhythm of the chambers, the allocation of women, and the rules of engagement. Attempts to manipulate or overstep her boundaries are met with the same firmness applied to the women themselves, swift, public, and undeniable. She is a mediator, an enforcer, and occasionally a gatekeeper of pleasure, making decisions that affect both economic flow and social order. Within her small, often cluttered office or the corner where she keeps her ledger, the Madame maintains an almost ritualistic command. Quills are sharpened, ink pots filled, and the pages of the ledger meticulously reviewed and cross-referenced. Small mistakes are magnified, small victories are celebrated privately. She moves with a combination of precision and intimidation, understanding that her physical presence is as much a tool of control as her words. A flick of her wrist, a tilt of her head, a raised eyebrow, all communicate expectations without uttering a single syllable. Yet, for all her strictness, the Madame operates within limits imposed by the city, the church, and the economy. She knows the precarious balance of visibility, legality, and morality. A single misstep could draw the ire of city authorities or religious enforcers, threatening the fragile equilibrium that allows her chambers to operate at all. Her authority is not unchecked. It is a constant negotiation with forces beyond her walls, and she wields her power carefully to maintain both order and profit. The women themselves understand the duality of her presence. Fear and respect intertwine, forming a complex web of obedience and dependence. They may grumble, share whispered complaints, or momentarily resent her strictness, but they also recognize its necessity. In a world that offers little protection to women, where every ally, every client, every unexpected knock is a potential threat, the Madame's authority is a stabilizing force, harsh yet vital. In the gaily rhythm of the chambers, the Madame sets the pace. She dictates wake times, schedules clients, enforces cleanliness, and ensures that the women meet the unrelenting standards of the day. Her voice echoes through the hallways, a constant reminder of structure, accountability, and hierarchy. Every action, from sweeping the floor to adjusting a gown, is performed under her watchful eye, reinforcing her presence as both overseer and ultimate arbiter. Her punishment, while feared, is also functional. It trains, disciplines, and aligns the women to the demands of the profession. Scolding, deprivation, extra labor, all are tools to maintain the machinery of survival. The Madame is both conductor and executor, orchestrating a delicate balance between fear and necessity, ensuring that the chambers function efficiently while also maintaining a fragile, often tense harmony. Even moments of levity are carefully controlled. A laugh, a shared story, a momentary pause, all occur under her gaze, and all are permitted within limits she defines. This authority, nuanced and omnipresent, shapes the entire ecosystem of the chambers, from the allocation of time to the distribution of resources, from the rhythm of client interactions to the management of personal property. By the time the morning rituals conclude, the Madame has already asserted control, corrected errors, and established her dominion for the day. The women, wary but disciplined, recognize the power she wields and adjust their movements accordingly. In this environment, authority is not abstract. It is physical, verbal, and psychological. It governs every aspect of existence, from the arrangement of straw on the mattress to the angle of a ribbon in the hair, from the distribution of soap to the timing of a client's visit. Survival here is inseparable from obedience, and obedience is inseparable from the Madame's authority. Every transaction, every interaction, every breath taken within these chambers is influenced, directed, and often dictated by the figure who stands as both enforcer and protector. Fear, respect, negotiation, and strategy all converge under her gaze, shaping the lives of those who inhabit this constrained, relentless, and unforgiving world.
Daily clients and social dynamics. From the very first light of morning, the chambers awaken not with bird song, but with the patter of footsteps, the creak of floorboards, and the distant, often muffled calls of clients arriving in the narrow streets outside. A steady stream of visitors, bakers, guards, laborers, merchants, and occasionally small-time wealthy men, knocks on the doors with predictable irregularity, each one carrying a unique set of expectations, habits, and desires. Each client is a challenge, a puzzle, a negotiation, and an opportunity, and each demands a performance carefully tailored to his whims. The baker arrives early, warm loaf in hand, eyes bright but cautious, as though hoping to curry favor with both service and charm. His smell is distinct: yeast, flour, and a faint tang of sweat from his morning labor. His compliments are clumsy, predictable, rehearsed, and yet essential. He expects laughter at jokes that have grown stale, appreciation for gestures that have been repeated countless times, and a measured flirtation that reassures him of his own importance. The woman must navigate each interaction with a blend of subtlety and overt acknowledgement, knowing that one misstep could mean less coin, less influence, or, at worst, the madam's scrutiny. Guards are altogether different. Their eyes are sharp, their expectations rigid, their egos inflated by the authority they wield in the streets. Compliments must be calculated, touches measured, and flattery distributed evenly across conversation, posture, and gaze. They are quick to notice fatigue, slow smiles, or hesitation. The performer in the chamber has no room for error here. Every gesture must convey interest, skill, and subtle deference, all while maintaining a composed detachment. Failure in this interaction may invite criticism, or, more seriously, a demand for repayment or additional labor. Laborers and merchants bring yet another set of challenges. They arrive weary, smelling of work and sweat, seeking solace in fantasy more than reality. Their needs are simple yet urgent, their patience thin, and their judgments harsh. Here, the woman must deploy charm, patience, and performative attentiveness simultaneously. A smile must feel genuine, a word carefully chosen, a touch deliberate but restrained. Each interaction is a careful dance, choreographed through years of experience, refined through repetition, and honed by the necessity of survival. Some clients are fleeting, passing like shadows in the narrow halls, while others linger, pressing against the boundaries of time and patience. Managing these interactions requires both memory and instinct. One must recall past encounters, preferences, complaints, and patterns of behavior. Forgetting a client's peculiarities, misreading a gesture, or failing to provide the subtle performance expected can jeopardize future visits. The ledger notes these failures, the madam observes them, and the women must carry the consequences with grace, apology, and renewed effort. In addition to client interactions, the social dynamics within the chambers themselves form a complex ecosystem. Relationships among colleagues oscillate constantly between alliance and rivalry, cooperation and competition. A borrowed ribbon, a stolen bar of soap, or a perceived slight can ignite conflicts that flare quickly, but often subside just as fast under the madam's watchful eye. Trust is both currency and liability. Alliances are strategic, friendships are fragile but necessary. Whispers of discontent must be measured against the risk of exposure and reprisal. Every conversation, every glance, every interaction carries layered meaning, signaling loyalty, defiance, or opportunity. Conflict often arises over clients as well. Two women may compete subtly for attention, positioning themselves to appear more attractive, more skilled, more desirable. This competition is not purely physical, it is psychological, a nuanced display of wit, timing, and adaptability. A joke here, a carefully placed gesture there, and alignment of body and gaze all contribute to the silent negotiation of social hierarchy within the chambers. These interactions shape the distribution of clients, the flow of coins, and the balance of authority maintained by the madam. Yet amidst rivalry, camaraderie exists. Shared experiences of exhaustion, discomfort, and risk create bonds that transcend minor grievances. A whispered warning about a particularly demanding client, a momentary exchange of soap or bread, a quiet joke during a brief lull. These gestures strengthen alliances and provide emotional sustenance in an environment otherwise defined by pressure and obligation. The time itself is marked not by clocks, but by client flow. Early mornings are dominated by the routine visitors, predictable and steady. Midday brings bursts of laborers, often quick, urgent, and exhausting, requiring rapid adaptation and immediate performance. Afternoons may see wealthier clients, more elaborate and less forgiving, demanding both charm and skill. Evenings stretch unpredictably with intoxicated men, unexpected arrivals, and the occasional altercation spilling over into the narrow hallways. The rhythm of the day dictates both strategy and energy expenditure, requiring constant assessment, adjustment, and perseverance. The madam's influence permeates every interaction. She observes from the threshold, listens from corners, and notes behavior in her ledger. Her presence ensures that client negotiations adhere to the expected norms and that disputes among women do not escalate beyond control. The women adjust accordingly, aware that her judgment will dictate the consequences of both success and failure. Authority and social performance are intertwined, and mastery of both is essential for survival, income, and sometimes mere physical safety. Clients themselves rarely perceive the full complexity of this ecosystem. To them, the performance appears effortless, the charm effortless, the smiles natural. They are blind to the calculations underlying each word, each gesture, each interaction, the careful monitoring of posture, tone, and expression, the intricate negotiation of proximity and touch, the precise management of emotional cues all operate beneath the surface of apparent spontaneity. It is a theater crafted for survival, economically motivated, psychologically nuanced, and physically exhausting. Social hierarchy within the chambers is continually reinforced through these interactions. Those who excel in client management gain favor with the madam, additional privileges, and often increased income. Those who falter face criticism, extra labor, or reassignment to less desirable tasks. Subtle cues, gestures, and whispered endorsements determine access to clients, the distribution of resources, and relative status among peers. Social dynamics are as critical to survival as physical stamina, and the skillful navigation of relationships becomes an essential part of the daily curriculum of life in the chambers. By evening, after the constant stream of visitors, the women are weary but seasoned. They have performed innumerable micro-negotiations, navigated complex social dynamics, and preserved, as best as possible, their dignity and safety. The day concludes not with rest, but with preparation for the next, a cycle of performance, observation, adaptation, and survival that repeats relentlessly. The ledger, the madam, the clients, and the social hierarchy all converge to create a world where every smile, every gesture, every interaction is both necessary and fraught with consequence. Even in the midst of exhaustion, there is resilience. Bonds forged in shared struggle, the subtle artistry of client management, and the intricate dance of social interaction provide the women with a sense of control in a world otherwise dominated by circumstance. They learn to read faces, anticipate demands, and navigate both human and institutional pressures with a skill that is as impressive as it is essential. The daily rhythm of client encounters and social dynamics shapes every aspect of life within the chamber. It dictates energy expenditure, informs strategic alliances, and reinforces authority. It teaches lessons in observation, adaptability, and psychological acuity. It is relentless, unforgiving, and yet, for those who survive, it provides structure, purpose, and a complex, often paradoxical sense of identity and mastery within a confined and challenging environment.
Payments and survival. The day begins with coins jingling, or more often, the disappointment of absent coins, because survival in the medieval city is a constant negotiation,
a meticulous accounting of resources measured in copper, silver, and occasionally the rare gold piece. For the women who inhabit the cramped, humid chambers, every transaction is more than commerce. It is survival itself. Each client brings not only payment, but also the promise or threat of sustenance, warmth, and the fragile illusion of stability in a world that offers little of either. Money is the lifeblood of the chamber. Without it, the straw mattresses go unfilled, the meager meals remain unfound, and rent to the madame becomes a source of fear rather than routine. Every coin counts. Every transaction is logged meticulously in the madame's ledger. There is no room for error, and even minor miscalculations or oversights can lead to punishment. The women must know exactly who owes what, who has provided which service, and how best to extract payment without angering or alienating a client. Failure is costly, both materially and socially. Clients themselves are unpredictable. Some pay readily, handing over coins or small trinkets with a smile or wink, confident that their investment will guarantee attention, affection, or pleasure. Others are more frugal, bargaining, haggling, or offering substitutes, a loaf of bread, a flask of ale, or a scrap of cloth. Each form of payment carries its own implications. A coin is straightforward. A loaf of bread feeds the body but not the ledger. Ale can soothe fatigue but cannot satisfy the madame's scrutiny. Cloth may protect from the chill, but it must be appropriated carefully, lest it be reclaimed or resented. Navigating these forms of remuneration requires sharp judgment, subtle flattery, and the constant vigilance that survival demands. Debt is a shadow that follows the women relentlessly. A client may promise payment tomorrow or the day after, but in a world without banknotes or contracts enforceable beyond the madame's walls, promises are only as reliable as memory and social reputation. Women learn quickly to weigh risk against opportunity, to assess a client's reliability in a glance, a word, or a gesture. Acceptance of partial payment or barter may be necessary, but it comes with the anxiety of deferred survival. The ledger notes it, the madame notices it. The women bear the consequences if expectation and reality fail to align. Expenses are constant, immediate, and often punitive. Rent must be paid daily or weekly, depending on the chamber's rules. Meals must be bought or bartered. Small necessities, from ribbons to stolen soap, demand attention and resourcefulness. Any mismanagement threatens immediate hardship, an empty stomach, a sore back from the uncompromising straw, or the madame's ire. Payment, therefore, is not merely about exchange, it is about existence itself, about negotiating a precarious balance between what the body requires and what the world will provide. Every coin is earned through skill, endurance, and performance. Flattery, laughter, charm, and physical attention are measured against the value returned. The body itself becomes both instrument and currency, a medium through which survival is negotiated. Each gesture is calculated. The tilt of a head, the pressure of a touch, the attentiveness of eyes, all are employed to maximize remuneration. In a world where currency is sparse and survival tenuous, mastery of this subtle economy is as essential as strength, courage, or cunning. Beyond currency, barter and gifts provide supplemental survival. Bread from a baker ensures nourishment. Ale from a laborer grants fleeting relief from exhaustion. Cloth from a wealthy client shields against chill and provides modest comfort. Yet even these substitutes require negotiation. The women must decide whether a loaf of bread is worth a moment of time, whether a flask of ale can replace a missed coin, whether a piece of cloth justifies a prolonged encounter with a client less predictable or less agreeable. Each choice is fraught with consequence, measured not only in immediate survival, but in long-term reputation and standing within the chamber's delicate hierarchy. Survival is further complicated by the madame's claims. A portion of every payment, coin or barter, is claimed immediately. Rent, fees, and fines are subtracted before the women even see the proceeds of their labor. Every coin must be accounted for, every loaf of bread noted, every piece of cloth weighed against the cost of permission, access, and obligation. The women learn to calculate constantly, to anticipate deductions, to plan for shortages, and to negotiate subtly and sometimes secretly for retention of what little remains. The physical act of earning payment is intertwined with social strategy. Some clients are regulars, their habits memorized over months or years. They are approached with familiarity, careful attention to preferences, and subtle performance adjustments to maintain loyalty. Others are irregular or new, requiring assessment, gauging, and improvisation. Each interaction is a negotiation, a performance, and a test of survival instincts sharpened to near perfection. Failure here is visible immediately in the ledger, the madame's gaze, and the empty stomach. Success, in contrast, yields both sustenance and leverage, the delicate promise of tomorrow made slightly easier by today's careful management. Coins once earned are treasured. They are counted, tucked into small pouches, hidden under mattresses or sewn into hems of gowns. They are portioned carefully, a fraction spent on food, a fraction saved for rent, a small portion hidden for emergencies. Every coin represents not only past labor, but future security, a tangible link between effort and survival. Mismanagement, theft, or oversight can unravel the fragile fabric of daily existence, making the meticulous accounting of payment both practical and existential. In the end, survival through payment is more than arithmetic. It is a dance of psychology, strategy, and endurance. The women must manage clients, maintain performance, navigate hierarchy, anticipate deductions, and preserve physical and mental energy. Each day is a continuous cycle of exchange, negotiation, and calculation, punctuated by moments of relief, exhaustion, or fleeting triumph. Survival is constant, and every earned coin, loaf of bread, or stolen scrap of cloth represents victory in a world that offers no guarantees. By nightfall, after coins are counted, bread consumed, and ale savored, the women are exhausted but not defeated. They have navigated a day fraught with financial, physical, and social hazards. Each client met, each payment negotiated, each deduction managed is a testament to skill, endurance, and cunning. The ledger reflects success and failure alike. The madame's scrutiny ensures compliance and order, and the women, through careful calculation and performance, have survived another day. Survival in the chamber is not glamorous. It is often painful, physically exhausting, and emotionally taxing. But it is also a demonstration of resilience, ingenuity, and tenacity. Every coin is both reward and lifeline. Every meal, loaf of bread, or flask of ale is a hard-won prize. The women understand the stakes intimately. Survival is the ultimate goal, and payment, in whatever form, is the currency of existence. In this delicate ecosystem, each transaction, no matter how small or imperfect, contributes to a fragile balance between life and collapse. The women's bodies, skills, and wits are all instruments of this balance, honed to precision through necessity, trial, and experience. Payment is survival. Survival is life, and life in these cramped, dimly lit chambers is earned one coin, one loaf, and one careful negotiation at a time.
Religion and patronage. Even amidst the relentless rhythm of the chambers, the faint echo of devotion persists. The women, weary, calloused, and perpetually negotiating survival, find themselves turning to faith in moments of despair and exhaustion, seeking solace, guidance, or perhaps forgiveness in a world that rarely offers any of the three. Their prayers are not grand, public spectacles, but whispered incantations, muttered beneath their breath while scrubbing floors, straightening gowns, or preparing for a client's arrival. Saint Mary Magdalene, patroness of their profession, occupies a peculiar place in their lives. To outsiders, she may be a figure of scandal or sin, but to those who navigate the streets and chambers daily, she is a quiet source of protection, understanding, and empathy. The women pray to her not for wealth, not for social elevation, but for endurance, for the fortitude to face another day, another client, another round of scrutiny from the madam. Her image, often a small, worn icon tucked in a corner or painted crudely on a wall, serves as both shield and witness, silently acknowledging the hidden struggles of those who live on society's margins. Religion in the chambers is layered, complex, and deeply personal. Outwardly, it is often performative, adhering to the city's expectations or the madam's commands. Mass attendance, ritual observances, and the occasional candle lit for protection are done in a way that signals compliance rather than devotion. Yet beneath this surface lies a private, intimate practice. A whispered prayer before a client, a quick sign of the cross before handling coins, or a silent plea while washing grime from the day's labor. These small gestures carry weight, a measure of hope that extends beyond the visible structures of authority and obligation. Conflict between public and private faith is constant. The city's authorities, the church, and even the madam enforce rules, often grounded in morality or legal sanction, which clash with the women's personal beliefs. Open displays of sin are punished. Public piety is monitored. Clandestine devotion is the only safe avenue for spiritual expression. The women navigate this tension carefully, learning to mask true sentiment, display acceptable forms of compliance, and protect the fragile intimacy of their personal faith. In the narrow, damp chambers, the line between sin and salvation is negotiated silently, privately, and urgently. Patronage, too, has a religious dimension. Certain clients, wealthier or more pious men, may offer small gifts, indulgences, or protection framed in religious terms. A loaf of bread from a baker who crosses himself before leaving, a coin tucked into a palm with a murmured blessing, or a moment of whispered reassurance invoking God or saints, all are subtle ways in which faith and economy intersect. The women learn to recognize these gestures, to accept them gracefully, and to integrate them into the daily ledger of survival. Spiritual currency in these cases becomes intertwined with material sustenance. Yet religion is not solely transactional. For many women, faith offers a refuge from the physical and emotional toll of their work. In moments of private reflection, when the madam's shouts fade, the floorboards cease to creak, and the clients have departed, prayer becomes a space for reckoning. Questions of morality, sin, and redemption surface here, often tangled with guilt, shame, or hope. The women consider not only what they must do to survive, but also what it means to live in a world where survival demands compromise, subversion, and secrecy. In the quiet of these reflections, faith becomes a companion, a confidant, and occasionally a source of courage. Sacred objects and rituals permeate the chamber subtly. Candles flicker on shelves, creating shadows that dance across the cracked walls. Small crosses or painted images mark corners, overlooked by many, but revered privately by some. A brief chant, a whispered litany, or the simple act of tracing a cross before service becomes an anchor, a momentary reclaiming of agency in an environment otherwise dictated by clients, the madam, and the relentless logic of survival. Even the act of cleaning or dressing takes on a ritualistic cadence, the motion itself a physical prayer repeated daily, silently binding labor and faith into a single, sustaining act. Religious tension is heightened by public perception. Society views the women as sinners, as moral deviants, and often as deserving of scorn or punishment. Yet within their private spaces, they assert a different relationship with divinity, one that is intimate, strategic, and profoundly human. They reconcile their visible actions with invisible devotion, navigating the dichotomy between shame and sanctity with cunning, care, and resilience. Public sin contrasts sharply with private sanctity, but both coexist, intertwined like threads in the fabric of their lives. Saints other than Mary Magdalene occasionally enter the narrative. Some women invoke Saint Catherine for wisdom, Saint Anthony for protection against theft, or Saint Michael for courage during particularly difficult encounters. Each invocation is tailored to the situation, reflecting both personal need and the strategies required for survival. Religious practice here is functional as well as spiritual. It is a tool for navigating both material and metaphysical landscapes, a hidden compass guiding choices, interactions, and emotional endurance. There are moments of clandestine absolution. The women confess privately, sometimes to sympathetic priests who tolerate discretion, sometimes to one another, creating a network of shared secrecy and spiritual support. Confession is not always formal. It is often a whispered exchange, a fleeting acknowledgement of misdeeds, a ritualized act of cleansing that requires neither church nor public recognition. In this way, religion becomes both shield and mirror, reflecting both societal judgment and inner conscience, allowing the women to negotiate morality on their own terms. The interplay of religion and survival is relentless. Each prayer is weighed against the demands of work, each invocation considered in the context of client expectations and social hierarchy. The women integrate faith into every decision, whom to favor, how to negotiate, when to feign devotion, and when to conceal true belief. Spiritual and economic literacy intertwine, creating a complex matrix of survival where morality, pragmatism, and human endurance coexist. Ultimately, religion in the chambers is not abstract or distant. It is immediate, intimate, and functional. It provides comfort in moments of fear, guidance in moments of uncertainty, and reinforcement for moments of courage. Through whispered prayers, hidden icons, and subtle gestures, the women maintain a spiritual life that is inseparable from their daily existence, allowing them to navigate a world that is often harsh, unjust, and unforgiving. Faith becomes a lifeline, a private strategy, and a sustaining companion, quietly empowering women who are otherwise constrained by circumstance. In these dark, cramped rooms, where survival dominates every thought and movement, religion offers a rare, fragile space for reflection, hope, and identity. It is a thread connecting body, mind, and spirit, a constant companion in a life where every coin, gesture, and word carries weight. Through prayer, devotion, and clandestine observance, the women maintain a spiritual life that is inseparable from their daily existence, allowing them to navigate a world that is often harsh, unjust, and unforgiving. Faith becomes a lifeline, a private strategy, and a sustaining companion, quietly empowering women who are otherwise constrained by circumstance.
Dangerous streets and nightlife. The city does not sleep, nor does it pause to consider the safety of those who inhabit its narrow alleys and dimly lit corners. For the women of the chambers, the streets are both a pathway and a gauntlet, a daily gauntlet where danger lurks behind every flickering torch and every shadowed doorway. At night, the urban landscape transforms into a theater of unpredictability. The clatter of hooves against cobblestones, the sharp bark of a street dog, and the low, sinister mutterings of beggars and thieves alike. Thieves prowl with nimble fingers, eyes gleaming in the flickering light, seeking to strip the unwary of coin, cloak, or even shoes. Their tactics are subtle and brazen in turn. A sudden push in a crowded market, a grasp at a pouch as a woman bends to adjust her gown, or the shadowy presence behind a wall as she hurries toward the safety of the chamber. Awareness is essential. Instinct becomes a second sense, guiding the body through the chaos, dictating the placement of hands over purse strings, the sidestep to avoid sudden contact, and the ever-vigilant scan of alleyways and windows. Beggars are equally omnipresent, though less violently so. Their hands reach, their voices plead, and their eyes watch for opportunity. Some may attempt subtle theft under the guise of desperation. Others may simply test patience, demanding small coins or scraps of food. Interaction with beggars requires careful calculation. A gesture of kindness may maintain appearances, but costs a piece of survival, while refusal risks conflict or retaliation. Each encounter is navigated with a combination of charm, distraction, and occasional sharpness, preserving both dignity and safety in a world where neither is guaranteed. The guards, ostensibly protectors of law, introduce yet another layer of complexity. Their authority is visible and immediate, their judgment swift, and their whims unpredictable. A woman walking the streets at night must balance caution with strategy. A sudden approach from a guard may require explanation, submission, or a carefully constructed story to avoid suspicion or punishment. Knowledge of patrol routes, schedules, and the personalities of the men enforcing the law becomes an essential skill, learned through observation, memory, and sometimes painful experience. Even the creatures of the city, rats, dogs, and the occasional stray cat pose threats, though less consciously. They navigate the same streets with freedom, scavenging through refuse, gnawing on scraps, and occasionally startling a woman mid-step, her attention already divided between the hazards of men and the shadows of night. Disease follows in the wake of these animals, riding the miasma of filth and decay, demanding vigilance and care even in small acts of cleanliness and movement. The city itself, with its open sewers, stagnant water, and dense population, becomes a constant adversary, a living organism that tests endurance and resilience at every turn. The women develop strategies honed through repeated exposure to danger. Routes are memorized. Shortcuts are preferred. Shadowed areas are avoided or approached with caution. Each step is calculated, hands positioned for defense, eyes scanning for escape routes, voice modulated to project confidence while remaining unobtrusive. Awareness becomes instinct, and instinct becomes survival. Even the act of negotiating with a client outside the chamber requires subtle assessment of risk, consent, and opportunity. Consent and negotiation are essential tools in this urban labyrinth. Every client, every interaction must be approached with caution. A sudden change in demeanor, a hand too firm, a tone too demanding, these signals are monitored, decoded, and responded to immediately. Self-preservation is paramount, and the women learn to assert boundaries subtly, using language, gesture, and social cues to navigate potential threats while maintaining the necessary performance of service. Each encounter outside the chamber requires an intricate blend of diplomacy, assertiveness, and strategic compliance. Nightlife presents additional hazards in the form of rival factions and territorial disputes. Street gangs, rival chamber operators, and opportunist criminals all vie for control over space, influence, and resources. A woman traversing these zones must constantly assess allegiance, threat levels, and the potential for intervention by the madam or other authorities. Even the casual exchange of a glance can convey warning or permission, signaling safety, danger, or neutrality. Social navigation becomes as crucial as physical endurance, requiring acute perception and rapid decision-making. Lighting, or lack thereof, compounds these dangers. Torches, lanterns, and flickering candlelight illuminate only fractions of the streets, leaving gaps where threats may lurk unseen. Shadows are deceptive. Alleys are labyrinthine. Corners conceal hidden eyes and unanticipated hands. The women move through this chiaroscuro landscape with practiced care, measuring steps, adjusting posture, and timing movements to minimize exposure. Every interaction with darkness is a negotiation, every shadow a potential adversary, every sound a cue demanding immediate evaluation. Despite the risks, the streets are essential pathways for survival. Food, coin, information, and clients all require movement beyond the safety of the chambers. The women learn to balance caution with necessity, recognizing that exposure to danger is unavoidable, but manageable with experience, wit, and adaptability. Streets that threaten with violence also offer opportunity, sustenance, and connection. Each night is a complex calculus, balancing risk against reward, vigilance against fatigue, and instinct against strategy. Training for the streets begins early. Young women observe elder peers, learning how to recognize a threat before it becomes immediate, how to gauge a client's temperament, and how to maintain composure under pressure. Mistakes are instructive. Each misstep is memorized, analyzed, and incorporated into future strategies. Over time, instinct merges with experience, creating a fine-tuned awareness that is both protective and performance-oriented. Survival depends on these lessons being internalized quickly, intuitively, and without hesitation. In addition to external threats, social dynamics intersect with street dangers. Rivalries within the chamber, client disputes, and territorial tensions compound the complexity of navigating urban life. Trust becomes selective. Alliances are tactical, and every interaction outside the chamber reflects both social negotiation and physical strategy. Women must continuously adapt, using charm, wit, and subtle assertiveness to navigate interactions safely while maintaining the necessary social and economic performance required by their work. Ultimately, the streets are a crucible. They demand endurance, awareness, and adaptability, testing physical, emotional, and social faculties simultaneously. Those who survive develop a combination of skill, intuition, and cunning that enables them to navigate a city defined by unpredictability, danger, and human desire. Every alleyway, torch-lit corner, and shadowed doorway becomes a lesson in survival, strategy, and negotiation. By the time a woman returns to the relative safety of her chamber, she carries the accumulated knowledge of the night's hazards. She has assessed threats, navigated conflict, asserted boundaries, and performed the delicate dance required to maintain safety, dignity, and livelihood. The streets, dangerous and relentless, are both adversary and teacher, shaping resilience, sharpening instinct, and demanding mastery of both body and mind. In this nocturnal theater, survival is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and continuous. Every step, glance, and word is part of a larger strategy to preserve life, protect self, and navigate the tangled interplay of danger, desire, and social expectation. The streets are unforgiving, yet those who master them gain both security and knowledge, acquiring skills as essential as any earned within the walls of the chamber itself.
Emotional and physical strain. Life in the chambers is a continuous negotiation between body and mind, each day leaving its mark in ways visible and invisible. From the moment the women awaken on their lumpy straw mattresses, aching muscles protest and minds groan under the weight of expectation. The physical toll is immediate and unrelenting. backs sore from hours of bending, hands roughened and cracked from scrubbing linens and floors, feet aching from shoes too small or cracked soles, skin irritated from repeated exposure to harsh soaps or coarse fabrics. Pain is routine, a constant companion, but it is never enough to justify idleness or avoidance. The demands of survival demand endurance, no matter how exhausted the body. The nights amplify this strain. Hours spent attending to clients, performing physical acts that blur into repetition, exact a relentless cost. The body becomes a ledger of labor, each bruise, scratch, and bite marking another day of survival. Exhaustion is compounded by irregular sleep, often broken by the knock of a door, a cough in the hallway, or the sudden unsettling sound of someone retching in the alley below. Rest is fragmented, fleeting, and frequently interrupted, leaving the women in a state of perpetual fatigue, their muscles heavy and minds alert with an anxious, calculating energy. Mental strain accompanies the physical. The constant need to assess clients, predict moods, and negotiate desires requires a sharp, agile mind. One must remember details from past interactions, anticipate reactions, and adjust performance accordingly, all while masking fatigue, disinterest, or displeasure. Emotional labor is as critical as physical labor. Every smile, every compliment, every glance is calibrated to ensure satisfaction while preserving the delicate balance of authority, social standing, and personal safety. Failure is costly. Reduced payment, reprimand from the madame, or the subtle erosion of reputation among colleagues and clients alike. Isolation intensifies emotional strain. Despite sharing the chamber space with other women, loneliness pervades. Each interaction is transactional, and genuine companionship is rare. Conversations are often laced with caution, alliances tested by jealousy, and trust reserved for the most carefully chosen confidants. Yet within these constraints, bonds form. Whispered warnings, shared jokes, fleeting moments of laughter, or quiet solidarity during particularly difficult encounters. These small gestures provide emotional sustenance, temporary reprieves from the relentless demands of survival, but they cannot erase the underlying loneliness that shadows life in the chambers. The women also bear the weight of societal judgment, a pervasive, invisible pressure. They are stigmatized, shamed, and often vilified by those outside the chambers. This external condemnation seeps into the inner landscape, compounding stress and anxiety. Internalized guilt and shame coexist with practical necessity, creating a psychological tension that requires constant management. Some women turn to religious practice for solace. Others rely on private rituals, humor, or small indulgences as coping mechanisms. Each strategy serves as a buffer against the relentless emotional strain of a life defined by marginalization, labor, and survival. Even small joys, however fleeting, provide critical relief. A warm meal, a loaf of bread, or a shared moment of laughter with a trusted colleague can temporarily lift the burden, offering a glimpse of normalcy and human connection. These instances are treasured and remembered, cataloged as emotional currency against the harsher realities of the day. Music from the streets, the smell of freshly baked bread, or a rare compliment from a client becomes an anchor, grounding the women in a world that is otherwise dominated by obligation, fatigue, and constant vigilance. Physical strain is compounded by emotional labor. The need to suppress frustration, hide disgust, and maintain performative engagement with clients demands both energy and focus. Emotional expression must be curated meticulously. A frown can alienate a client, while a forced smile must appear natural, convincing, and timely. The psychological choreography is relentless, a continuous performance that blurs the boundary between self-preservation and social expectation. Over time, these acts imprint upon the psyche, creating a hardened exterior while preserving the delicate interior required for resilience. Sleep deprivation, already a daily concern, exacerbates both mental and physical strain. Irregular rest leaves the body slow, muscles tight, and reflexes dulled, while the mind battles fatigue and persistent anxiety. Yet, even in these moments of extreme exhaustion, the women cannot afford vulnerability. Each client, each knock on the door, each interaction with the madame requires alertness, adaptability, and precise execution. Survival depends on maintaining composure and efficiency despite overwhelming fatigue, a skill refined over countless days and nights. Illness further complicates the landscape of strain. In the damp, crowded, and unsanitary conditions of the chambers, colds, fevers, and other ailments are common. A woman sick with fever must decide between risking exposure to a client or sacrificing a day of earnings, each choice weighed against immediate survival and long-term health. The body becomes both a tool and a liability, with every ache and shiver carrying strategic implications. Knowledge of one's limits, resilience in adversity, and careful management of energy are essential to navigate this precarious existence. The emotional toll extends to social dynamics as well. Interpersonal conflicts within the chamber, stemming from jealousy, competition, or resource scarcity, introduce further strain. Alliances must be managed delicately, grievances addressed subtly, and loyalty assessed continuously. A word too sharp, a glance misinterpreted, or a perceived slight can ripple through relationships, affecting daily interactions, resource allocation, and overall morale. The women become adept at reading subtle cues, interpreting body language, and performing social diplomacy, all while maintaining the appearance of composure and detachment. Cumulative strain manifests in both body and mind. Repeated labor without adequate recovery leads to chronic soreness, persistent fatigue, and psychological stress. Anxiety, hypervigilance, and emotional exhaustion are common, yet survival leaves little room for respite. Every day demands a careful balance of energy expenditure, emotional management, and strategic calculation. The women develop remarkable endurance, both physical and psychological, but it is hard-won, often visible only to those who look beyond the performative surfaces of chamber life. Yet even within this oppressive strain, moments of reflection, humor, and subtle resistance persist. A shared joke, a fleeting smile at an unexpected kindness, or a brief conversation about a client's absurd behavior offers relief. These small reprieves, while not sufficient to erase the cumulative burden, create a network of emotional support that sustains women over the long term. Bonds formed through shared adversity, empathy, and mutual recognition become lifelines, counteracting the relentless toll of chamber life. In sum, the daily existence in the chambers is defined by an unrelenting interplay of physical fatigue and emotional strain. Every muscle ache, every sleepless hour, every moment of loneliness is intertwined with the demands of labor, the pressures of social navigation, and the imperatives of survival. Yet within this landscape, women cultivate resilience, ingenuity, and small pockets of joy, demonstrating a remarkable capacity to endure, adapt, and sustain life amid conditions that would break many others. Emotional and physical strain is both a defining feature and a silent testament to the strength, intelligence, and perseverance required to navigate the perilous, demanding, and unpredictable world of the medieval chamber.
Client types and interaction.
The world beyond the chamber door is populated with a spectrum of characters as varied as the city itself. Each day, women encounter a parade of clients, drunken merchants whose words slur into unsteady confessions, soldiers with rough hands and rigid expectations, nobles whose arrogance and entitlement are tempered only by their desire for secrecy, and the occasional wanderer whose intentions are as unpredictable as the night. Navigating this panorama requires more than physical skill. It demands keen observation, psychological acuity, and an almost theatrical mastery of performance. Drunken merchants arrive first, often early in the day, bearing the scent of ale and the weight of their anxieties. Their confidence is erratic, their attention fleeting, and their speech punctuated by sudden bursts of laughter or despair. The women must calibrate their engagement carefully, matching energy without overcommitting, providing reassurance without encouraging over-familiarity. Every gesture, glance, and word is a negotiation, balancing pleasure, safety, and payment. Flattery becomes a nuanced language. A raised eyebrow, a gentle laugh, or an attentive nod communicates competence and charm, sustaining the fragile economy of client satisfaction. Soldiers present a different challenge. Their movements are disciplined, their expectations direct, and their patience often limited. Some are courteous, attentive even, but most carry the roughness of the battlefield into the chamber. They appreciate efficiency, clarity, and a measured engagement that satisfies their needs without unnecessary complication. The women learn to read posture, tone, and rhythm, adjusting their approach to maintain control, safety, and profitability. The performance is subtle, a delicate combination of deference and confidence, ensuring the client leaves satisfied while avoiding overexposure or risk. Nobles, by contrast, are creatures of indulgence and pretense. They arrive with airs of superiority, expecting obedience, discretion, and charm in equal measure. Their wealth affords them audacity, but it also makes them predictable in certain patterns, a fondness for compliments, an appreciation for subtle gestures of sophistication, or a desire for entertainment alongside physical gratification. Engaging these clients requires social intelligence as much as technical skill. A misplaced word or misunderstood cue can jeopardize payment or incite anger. Success with nobles is both lucrative and precarious, offering the possibility of higher earnings, protection, or patronage, while demanding careful attention to etiquette, timing, and emotional cues. Among these archetypes are irregular clients, the wanderers whose presence is sudden, their intentions opaque. These encounters carry heightened risk, as unpredictability multiplies the potential for conflict, miscommunication, or danger. The women navigate these interactions with heightened awareness, employing preemptive strategies learned from experience, positioning themselves strategically, reading facial expressions, and gauging the client's temperament before engagement. Flattery here is adaptive, a fluid tool used to diffuse tension, inspire trust, and elicit compliance. Every detail matters, from the tilt of the head to the cadence of speech, each gesture measured against potential reward and risk. Interaction is not limited to the physical or transactional. It extends into the realm of psychological performance. Women must manage perception carefully, projecting warmth, attentiveness, and interest, while managing internal fatigue, discomfort, or distaste. Emotional labor is continuous. The client must feel heard, appreciated, and satisfied, even when the underlying reality is exhaustion, discomfort, or distraction. Mastery of this duality is essential, and those who excel in it can navigate the spectrum of clients with grace, efficiency, and profitability. Flattery is the currency of social negotiation. It is applied judiciously, tailored to the individual client's temperament and expectations. With merchants, it may be playful banter. With soldiers, careful deference. With nobles, subtle admiration or acknowledgement of status. Each interaction demands assessment and improvisation, ensuring the client feels valued while preserving the woman's agency, safety, and control. Flattery is never merely superficial. It is a strategic tool, a method of management, and often the difference between success and failure in both payment and safety. Performance is equally critical. Each client requires a bespoke approach, a performance calibrated to desire, temperament, and circumstance. Movements, gestures, expressions, and conversation are choreographed instinctively, ensuring both satisfaction and safety. The women become adept at shifting roles fluidly: companion, confidant, entertainer, and provider, sometimes all at once. Every encounter is rehearsed in real time, a delicate ballet of attention, timing, and adaptability, honed through repetition, observation, and necessity. Boundaries are negotiated constantly. Consent, comfort, and safety must be maintained alongside financial and social obligations. The women balance accommodation with self-preservation, ensuring that their physical and emotional well-being is not entirely surrendered to the whims of the client. This negotiation is subtle, communicated through posture, word choice, and action, often without overt confrontation, preserving harmony while asserting limits. Mastery of these invisible negotiations is essential, and failure carries consequences, both material and personal. Clients also serve as barometers of social perception. Interactions reveal attitudes toward gender, class, and morality. The behavior of the wealthy versus the working class, the disciplined versus the indulgent, provides insight into the hierarchies and prejudices of the city. The women absorb these observations, integrating them into strategies for survival, negotiation, and performance. Each engagement becomes both a lesson and a transaction, a complex interplay of psychology, power, and economics. Regular clients offer a unique dynamic. Patterns emerge, preferences are learned, and rapport develops, allowing for more predictable engagement and higher efficiency. These clients are carefully managed, treated with familiarity, yet reminded of boundaries, flattered, yet held accountable. The balance between intimacy and professionalism is delicate, requiring constant attention and adjustment. A misstep could damage trust, reduce payment, or invite confrontation, but successful navigation strengthens stability, income, and social leverage. Irregular clients, by contrast, are tests of adaptability. Each is a puzzle, a negotiation of risk and reward, requiring rapid assessment and improvisation. Success here is both practical and reputational, signaling competence within the chamber while ensuring survival and payment. The chamber itself acts as both stage and audience. Other women observe interactions, sharing insights, warnings, or strategies. Competition is tempered by collaboration. Advice is exchanged, reputations are monitored, and alliances are maintained. The social network within the chamber is intricately linked to client management, influencing performance, safety, and financial outcome. A well-handled client is both personal success and social capital, reinforcing status and credibility within the chamber hierarchy. Economic necessity underpins every interaction. Payment, in coin or barter, is the ultimate goal. Each client demands tailored strategies to maximize yield while minimizing risk. Drunken merchants may be coaxed for a little extra coin or a bread. Soldiers might be persuaded to tip through flattery or efficiency. Nobles offer the potential for prestige, protection, or gifts, but require careful attention to etiquette, timing, and emotional cues. Even beyond immediate survival, client interaction shapes identity, skill, and resilience. Women developed keen observation, social intelligence, and emotional dexterity,
mastering both subtle and overt forms of influence. Every gesture, word, and touch becomes a calculated act, a means of maintaining control, negotiating value, and asserting agency in a world where both are precarious. In the end, managing clients is an art as much as labor. It requires physical endurance, psychological insight, and emotional resilience. The spectrum of client types, drunken, disciplined, entitled, or unpredictable, demands constant adaptation, vigilance, and performance. Mastery of this intricate dance ensures both survival and relative stability, allowing the women to navigate their complex social, economic, and physical environment with precision and skill.
Superstitions and beliefs. In the dim, cramped chambers of the medieval city, superstition is not merely a quirk. It is a survival strategy, a silent ritual, an invisible shield against the capriciousness of life. For the women who inhabit these spaces, every creak of the floorboard, every flicker of candlelight, and every shadow cast by the moon outside is a potential omen. These beliefs, though often dismissed by the more educated or powerful, weave a crucial thread through daily existence, shaping behavior, decision-making, and even the management of clients. Protection charms are omnipresent. Small, inconspicuous objects, herbs, amulets, trinkets, or scraps of cloth are tucked into pockets, sewn into gowns, or hidden beneath mattresses. Each carries a purpose: to ward off disease, prevent accidents, or shield against the unpredictable whims of clients. Rosemary for protection, garlic to repel evil, a rabbit's foot or carved bone to attract fortune. These items are handled with a seriousness born of necessity. To the women, the charms are more than superstition. They are insurance policies in a world where safety is precarious and control is limited. Spells and whispered incantations accompany daily tasks. A short rhyme before leaving the chamber, a murmured plea while sweeping the floor, or a soft chant over a cup of water becomes a ritualized act of agency. Though the city outside may be indifferent, these small practices provide psychological comfort, a sense of power over the unseen forces that seem to govern both fortune and misfortune. Belief and action intertwine, creating a delicate balance between the tangible and the mystical, the rational and the imagined. Superstitions also extend to client interactions. Women assess the alignment of stars, the timing of visits, and even the arrangement of coins on the counter to gauge luck and ward off potential danger. An inauspicious pattern of footsteps or a sudden chill might prompt a brief invocation of protective saints, a discreet placement of an amulet, or a whispered blessing over the chamber door. These acts, while invisible to outsiders, are deeply embedded in daily routines, functioning as both ritual and reassurance. The fear of misfortune is ever present. Illness, accidents, or sudden deaths are interpreted through a lens of mysticism and caution. A colleague falling ill might spark hurried consultations with charms and herbs, prayers to saints, or protective gestures meant to avert the same fate. Each incident reinforces the belief that danger is not random. It can be anticipated, negotiated, or mitigated through careful observance of ritual and tradition. Superstition thus becomes both a shield and a map, guiding behavior and shaping choices in subtle but persistent ways. Folklore and tales from the streets circulate constantly, each narrative serving as both entertainment and warning. Young women learn from these accounts, internalizing lessons about caution, respect, and vigilance. Whether encountering a seemingly minor shadow in an alley or a sudden, inexplicable noise in the chamber, the stories inform perception, teaching attentiveness and promoting an instinctive wariness that is essential for survival. Charm making itself is a skilled practice. Some women take pride in their knowledge of herbs, symbols, and rituals, crafting protective talismans with care and precision. The process is both practical and meditative, offering a small sense of control in a life often dominated by external pressures. Each charm carries intention and history, linking the maker with generations of women who have navigated the same streets, endured similar dangers, and relied on the unseen to maintain a fragile equilibrium. Belief in spirits and the supernatural also informs interactions with the environment. Floors, walls, and doorways are treated with ritual gestures, prayers, or the placement of protective objects to ensure safety and prevent malevolent influences. Candles are lit not only for illumination, but for guidance, protection, and symbolic cleansing. The chamber becomes a microcosm where superstition intersects with everyday tasks, transforming ordinary acts into meaningful, purposeful rituals. Illness and injury are interpreted through both medical and mystical frameworks. A fever may be treated with herbs and ointments, while simultaneously being warded off with protective charms. Cuts, bruises, or sprains are bound with intention-laden cloth or rubbed with powders believed to possess protective qualities. The women recognize that these practices are not cures in the modern sense, but they offer psychological reassurance and a perceived layer of security, reinforcing a sense of agency in an unpredictable environment. Superstition also influences social interactions. Certain clients are considered lucky, others potentially dangerous, and behavior is adjusted accordingly. A coin placed on the table in a specific manner may signal goodwill. A gesture overlooked or ignored might be interpreted as an omen. These subtle cues are learned, shared among colleagues, and internalized, forming an invisible code that regulates both conduct and expectation. The women become adept at reading signs, interpreting omens, and adjusting behavior to align with both observed patterns and spiritual intuition. Even in the absence of direct danger, superstition offers comfort. When the chamber is dark and the city silent, rituals provide structure and predictability. Lighting a candle, whispering a charm, or arranging protective objects transforms the space from mere survival quarters into a sanctuary of control and meaning. These acts are deeply personal, yet communal knowledge reinforces them, creating a shared culture of precaution, belief, and subtle empowerment. Seasonal and temporal superstitions dictate timing for tasks, movement, and interaction. The phases of the moon, market days, religious holidays, and other calendarical markers influence behavior, decisions, and client engagement. Observing these patterns, even subtly, is considered wise, aligning actions with perceived cycles of fortune and danger. Women internalize these rhythms, allowing superstition to guide choices with an intuition that merges practicality and belief seamlessly. Ritualized offerings occasionally accompany daily work. A coin left in a corner, a small gift to a statue or saint, or the burning of incense may be performed to secure protection or ensure a smooth day. These acts, while invisible to the majority, create psychological comfort, reinforce social and spiritual identity, and provide a tangible sense of agency amidst the unpredictable forces of city life. Ultimately, superstition and belief are inseparable from survival. They guide decisions, influence behavior, and shape perception in a world where danger is ever present and control is limited. While some may dismiss these practices as quaint or irrational, for the women of the chambers, they represent centuries of accumulated wisdom, a toolkit for navigating risk, and a source of both comfort and empowerment. Through charms, rituals, incantations, and storytelling, the women transform uncertainty into manageable patterns, fear into vigilance, and vulnerability into resilience. Each object, gesture, and whispered word carries significance, reinforcing a framework through which the perils of the night, the unpredictability of clients, and the fragility of health can be met with preparation and courage. Superstition is not passive belief. It is active, deliberate, and woven into the fabric of daily life. It is an invisible armor, a mnemonic for caution, and a psychological anchor that sustains the women through the cumulative weight of labor, danger, and survival. In the damp, flickering shadows of the chamber, these practices preserve hope, structure, and a sense of control, transforming the unpredictable urban landscape into a navigable, if still hazardous, world. In the end, the interplay of superstition, belief, and survival reveals the ingenuity, adaptability, and resilience of women who inhabit a precarious space in medieval society. Every charm sewn into a
Secret lives and relationships. Behind the dimly lit doors of the chambers, behind the faded red gowns and the weary smiles, lies a world of secrets, whispers, and carefully guarded relationships. The women who inhabit these spaces live lives that are public in their labor, yet intensely private in their affections, friendships, and familial connections. Every bond carries weight. Every connection is measured against necessity, safety, and social consequence. And every moment of intimacy outside the chamber is a delicate negotiation between desire, survival, and discretion. Family ties, though often strained or distant, continue to influence daily existence. Mothers, siblings, and even distant relatives are aware, sometimes vaguely, sometimes intimately, of the women's circumstances. The tension between familial duty, shame, and social expectation is constant. A mother's admonishment or a sibling's gossip can ripple across days, influencing behavior, morale, and mental well-being. Many women must navigate this tension carefully, managing interactions to preserve financial support, maintain secrecy, or protect loved ones from scandal. Each conversation, each visit, carries the dual weight of love and judgment, of responsibility and concealment. Romantic relationships exist in fragile secrecy. Lovers may be loyal, but their understanding of the woman's profession is often incomplete or influenced by social stigma. Courting a soldier, merchant, or even a fellow chamber worker carries layers of risk. Emotional vulnerability may be exploited, financial gain may be expected, and the exposure of secrets may have consequences both personal and professional. The women become adept at reading signals, negotiating boundaries, and balancing intimacy with prudence. A whispered conversation, a touch, or a fleeting glance can convey connection, affection, or warning, often all simultaneously. Friendships within the chamber are both a lifeline and a battlefield. Trust is scarce, yet necessary. Alliances are formed cautiously, often around shared experiences, mutual protection, and common enemies. Confidences are exchanged in hushed tones, warnings passed along corridors, and solidarity demonstrated through small acts of kindness. Yet jealousy, competition, and suspicion constantly challenge these bonds. A colleague's favor with a client, a misinterpreted gesture, or a rumored slight can strain the most carefully nurtured friendship. Navigating this landscape requires emotional intelligence, subtle diplomacy, and an acute awareness of social hierarchy within the chamber. Affection and attachment are complicated by the omnipresent social stigma surrounding their profession. Outside the walls of the chamber, respect and acceptance are scarce. Judgment and moral censure abound. This duality creates a constant tension between the desire for connection and the need for concealment. Women must carefully regulate their behavior, manage appearances, and craft narratives that protect themselves and their loved ones from exposure. Every social interaction, from the market encounter to a neighborly greeting, carries the potential to reveal too much or invite scrutiny. Secret alliances extend to the wider social environment. Some women maintain relationships with sympathetic city guards, local merchants, or clergy who provide discreet protection, advice, or resources. These alliances are delicate, transactional, and often precarious. Trust is extended sparingly, negotiated continuously, and tested against the unpredictability of human behavior. A favor may be repaid with gratitude or exploited for leverage. A perceived slight may be held in memory, influencing future interactions. Within this web, the women exercise remarkable social acuity, balancing risk and reward in every encounter. Even casual acquaintances are navigated with care. Market vendors, tavern keepers, and neighbors are observed, assessed, and managed to prevent unwanted exposure or manipulation. Information flows both ways. Rumors, warnings, and gossip may serve as both threat and tool. The women learn to wield social perception as deftly as they manage client interactions, blending charm, concealment, and calculation to preserve both livelihood and personal safety. Romance, when it occurs, is inevitably shaped by context. Courtship must be discreet, expressions of affection measured, and boundaries carefully maintained. Lovers often accept partial truths or omissions, constructing narratives that allow for intimacy while preserving secrecy. Each meeting, each whispered confession, each exchanged token carries the weight of possibility and risk, a delicate balancing act that tests emotional resilience and social judgment. Parental instincts, when present, are shadowed by professional reality. Mothers who work in the chambers must balance care for children with the demands of labor, often relying on extended networks of relatives, neighbors, or fellow workers for support. This delicate juggling of responsibility, secrecy, and survival underscores the complexity of their lives, blending affection and necessity in ways invisible to the outside world. Every meal prepared, every whispered story, every precaution taken reflects a careful calibration of duty and discretion. Romantic liaisons can also intersect with economic considerations. Gifts, favors, or protection may intertwine with affection, blurring the line between desire and necessity. The women must continuously evaluate motives, intentions, and potential consequences, ensuring that emotional investment does not compromise survival. Each interaction is layered with calculation, subtle negotiation, and vigilant observation. Emotional engagement is both shield and currency, a tool for navigating a complex social landscape. The secrecy of these relationships heightens their intensity. Hidden exchanges, coded messages, and clandestine meetings imbue even brief encounters with heightened significance. Every shared glance, touch, or word carries emotional weight, magnified by the necessity of concealment. These moments of intimacy, though brief and precarious, provide crucial emotional sustenance, offering reprieve from the relentless labor and social isolation of chamber life. Friendships outside the chamber are rare but vital. Trusted allies in the marketplace, tavern, or neighborhood offer support, advice, and companionship. These relationships are carefully curated, maintained with vigilance, and protected from exposure. The women develop an acute sense of who can be trusted, learning to discern genuine goodwill from potential exploitation. Social intelligence, therefore, is as crucial to survival as physical endurance, influencing both personal security and emotional resilience. Family, lovers, colleagues, and confidants all intersect in a web of secrecy, affection, and negotiation. Each connection is carefully weighed against potential risk, benefit, and social consequence. A misstep could result in gossip, financial loss, or personal danger. A successful navigation strengthens social capital, emotional stability, and strategic positioning. The women's lives are a continuous dance of discretion, balancing openness with concealment, attachment with autonomy, and affection with survival. Ultimately, the secret lives of these women illustrate a remarkable adaptability, emotional intelligence, and resilience. Despite the weight of labor, societal stigma, and constant surveillance, they cultivate bonds that sustain, protect, and enrich them. Every hidden affection, every cautious friendship, every carefully guarded secret contributes to a network of support, security, and emotional nourishment that enables them to endure and thrive in a world defined by constraint, danger, and marginalization. Within these clandestine connections, the women assert agency, maintain identity, and preserve humanity. Love, loyalty, friendship, and family, though hidden, complicated, and precarious, provide a vital counterbalance to the rigors of daily survival. These relationships, secret yet potent, are a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the enduring need for human connection in a world that often seeks to deny it.
Illness and injury. In the cramped, dimly lit chambers of the medieval city, illness is an omnipresent threat. Every cough echoing down the alley, every feverish shiver, and every sharp pang in the side is a reminder of the fragility of the body and the precariousness of survival. For the women who labor here, sickness is not a luxury. They cannot pause, rest, or retreat into comfort. There is no sick leave, no modern medicine, no insurance. When the body falters, they must rely on resilience, improvisation, and sometimes sheer stubbornness to continue. Illness manifests in myriad forms, from the common cold that seeps into the bones and makes muscles ache, to more severe fevers that leave skin hot, eyes glassy, and limbs trembling. Dysentery, often contracted from contaminated water or food, is a particular terror, leaving its victims weak, dehydrated, and vulnerable. Cuts and abrasions, routine in the daily labor of scrubbing floors, handling rough linens, or tending to unruly clients, can become gateways for infection in the unsanitary conditions of the chamber. Even minor injuries are treated with improvised remedies, herbs, vinegar, or compresses, and faith that the body will endure until recovery is possible. The threat of communicable disease is ever present. The chambers are crowded, ventilation limited, and hygiene imperfect at best. Illness spreads quickly, leaving one woman incapacitated and threatening to ripple through the rest. Each cough, each fevered moan is a reminder that survival is not just a personal challenge, but a communal one. Women develop an instinct for observation, noting pallor, sweat, and subtle changes in behavior to anticipate the onset of sickness, both in themselves and in their peers. Dengue, typhoid, or other endemic illnesses bring particular peril. High fevers, severe joint pain, and relentless fatigue strike without warning, often leaving a woman incapable of performing the basic tasks required for survival. There is no physician on call, no modern treatment, just poultices, prayers, and hope that the body will endure. The chamber becomes a space of improvisation, with neighboring women providing basic care, guiding food and water, and offering moral support. These small acts of assistance can mean the difference between life and death in extreme cases. Cuts, bruises, and burns are everyday realities. The floors are uneven, the walls splintered, and utensils and implements rough. Each injury is cataloged, treated quickly with whatever materials are available, and pushed aside as work continues. Infection, however, is a constant threat. A neglected cut can escalate, causing fevers, swelling, and systemic illness.
The women become adept at makeshift bandaging, herbal poultices, and preventative rituals to guard against the unseen dangers lurking in every minor wound. Vomiting and nausea are common companions. Exposure to spoiled food, poor sanitation, or the stress of labor can trigger sudden illness. When a client arrives in such moments, the woman must summon every ounce of physical and emotional control to conceal weakness, maintain composure, and perform the duties expected. The body may rebel, but survival depends on endurance. The performance is both literal and metaphorical, concealing vulnerability while projecting competence and resilience. Chronic fatigue exacerbates illness. Irregular sleep, constant labor, and relentless emotional strain weaken the immune system, leaving the body vulnerable to infection. Even minor ailments are amplified, and recovery is prolonged. Women learn to ration energy, balancing labor with rest, and relying on nutrition, meager as it is, to sustain strength. A sip of warm broth, a piece of bread, or a shared morsel can be both nourishment and medicine, fortifying body and spirit. Self-reliance is paramount. There is no structured healthcare system for these women. Every treatment is improvised, every diagnosis guessed, and every recovery a personal endeavor. Herbs from the marketplace, advice from experienced colleagues, and religious rituals form the toolkit for managing illness. Poultices, compresses, and poultices of boiled herbs are applied with careful hands, prayers whispered over them. Knowledge is passed down, learned through observation, experimentation, and necessity. Failure is costly, but mastery can mean prolonged survival in a hazardous environment. Mental strain accompanies physical illness. Fever and fatigue bring irritability, despair, and anxiety. The women must maintain emotional equilibrium despite the discomfort, for panic or withdrawal could compromise both safety and income. Mental resilience becomes a critical skill, as essential as the ability to scrub floors, serve clients, or apply makeshift bandages. Coping mechanisms include humor, storytelling, and small rituals, all of which serve as anchors amid the disorienting effects of illness. Accidents compound the hazards. A slip on a wet floor, a sudden fall of a poorly secured object, or an unexpected movement from a client can result in injuries ranging from minor bruises to severe trauma. With no immediate medical assistance, women develop strategies to prevent and manage injuries. Careful navigation of space, anticipation of hazards, and constant vigilance. These habits become instinctive, honed by experience and necessity, a silent choreography of survival that blends awareness, reflex, and caution. Communal care is vital. Women tend to one another, offering support when illness strikes. A hot cloth, a whispered encouragement, or guidance through basic treatment measures can mean survival in moments of vulnerability. These acts of solidarity reinforce social bonds, creating a network of mutual aid that strengthens the group despite the ever-present risks. In the absence of formal medicine, community becomes both a practical and emotional lifeline. The unpredictability of illness requires constant adaptation. A sudden fever may force a reallocation of work, negotiation with the madame for delayed duties, or reliance on colleagues to cover obligations. Each decision carries risk, lost income, reprimand, or exposure of weakness. The women learn to strategize, improvising solutions that maintain survival while minimizing social or financial consequences. Flexibility, foresight, and resilience are essential tools in navigating the precarious intersection of health and labor. Chronic conditions, untreated or recurrent injuries, and the cumulative toll of labor create a pervasive awareness of mortality. Women internalize the fragility of the body, developing habits that blend caution with pragmatism. Observation, preventative care, and subtle ritual become intertwined, forming an invisible framework that guides daily life. Awareness of personal limits, recognition of early symptoms, and strategic response are indispensable skills learned and refined through necessity. Even minor recovery rituals are laden with significance. A warm bath when water permits, a brief rest on a lumpy mattress, or a small prayer over a healing poultice carries both physical and emotional meaning. These acts are reminders of self-preservation, tools to maintain morale, and markers of agency in a life dominated by external demands. Every small victory against illness reinforces resilience, shaping both character and survival instinct. Ultimately, illness and injury are inseparable from the experience of chamber life. They define daily routines, influence social dynamics, and shape personal strategies for survival. The women navigate a world where the body is simultaneously a tool, a liability, and a source of resilience. Mastery of physical endurance, improvisation of remedies, and cultivation of mental fortitude allow them to persist, demonstrating remarkable adaptability in the face of persistent and unpredictable hazards. In the damp, shadowed chambers of the city, health is fragile, injury is constant, and survival requires ingenuity, endurance, and relentless vigilance. Through improvisation, observation, communal care, and careful management of risk, the women navigate the perilous intersection of labor, disease, and accident. Their bodies bear the marks of hardship, yet each healed wound, every day survived, and every illness overcome is a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the remarkable capacity to endure in the unforgiving world of the medieval chamber.